Class and welcome back. I hope you guys have had an awesome week so far. Hope you guys are doing well. And I just again want to encourage you guys to keep working hard. I really do appreciate how hard you guys are working. I know it's completely different. I know everything is new, but you guys are doing well. You guys are working hard, and I want to encourage you to stay strong, like the Bible says, like Paul says, to finish the course, to keep the faith. And I know that spiritually speaking, but also academically speaking, just run the race and don't forget that God is in control and God knows exactly what's going on. So I hope that you can encourage yourself in the Lord and encourage others as well. And I hope that I can be an encouragement to you guys. I really do miss you guys. I don't just say that, but I really do miss seeing you guys in class and enjoying our time together, enjoying history together. And I do want you guys to know that I do miss you, and I wish I could see you guys in person, but I'm glad we're able to do the Zoom. So I hope that you guys are enjoying that, like I am. I know for some of us it's kind of early, 9 o'clock, 9:30, kind of sometimes early, but I think it's worth it, and I really enjoy it. So I hope you guys do as well. We're starting a new chapter. We're in chapter 23. We're on 368. So I'd like you to follow along in your books as I go through the first section, actually the first two sections of chapter 23, 23.1, 23.2. We are starting this brand new age in the United States. So notice the title, it says, Which Way America? It's kind of like we were pretty liberal and now we're going conservative. And mainly because of our president, President Ronald Reagan. He's one of my favorite presidents. I don't know if I have a favorite president. It's very hard to choose a favorite one, but I'll be honest with you, I really love Reagan. I love his character. I love his policies. I love um his jokes really. I inspire to be as funny as Reagan. I would suggest that you look up some of his jokes. I'll mention one today. I know they're probably funnier than mine. I know, which is pretty hard because I know my jokes are pretty awesome. But President Reagan was a pretty awesome president. He wasn't perfect, but he was, for the most part, he was good, and he really did build America. So first off, he was from the Republican Party. He beat um, Jimmy Carter, who was the president, and he defeated the reigning president, if you will. And he did so pretty easily. Now, Reagan gets a lot of popularity from being a former governor of California, but he was also a movie star as well. He was an actor. And many people would contribute or compare Ronald Reagan and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Do you guys know who Arnold Schwarzenegger is? I haven't seen the movie, but the Terminator. Um, I know his famous line is like "I'll be back" or something like that. And of course, I can't do it as good as him, but he has that accent, and that is why he will never be a Reagan. Not because of his accent, but because Arnold Schwarzenegger is not a natural born citizen. He is a citizen of the United States. He's been here long enough and he became the governor of California. He's not the current governor, but he was a governor of California. But he was not a natural born citizen. And to be the president of the United States, you must be a natural born citizen. So that's as high as Arnold Schwarzenegger can go is governor. I mean, he could go in Congress, but he cannot be president of the United States. So he compares with Ronald Reagan. He was a Republican governor, like Reagan was. He was a movie star, like Reagan was, but he will not be president, like Reagan was. So kind of interesting. Reagan earns a reputation even before he gets into the presidency, mainly because of his character through the movies and through being governor of the California. But he earns the nickname, as he really begins, he earns the nickname of Great Communicator. This is on page 369. Many people will love and reverence Reagan's speech making abilities, and he was quick on his feet. He had a great way of wording things, especially some difficult things to say. He was very quick, very witty on things to say. So he was just great at public speaking. He was great at getting the point across quickly and effectively. He was a great communicator, as his nickname, as he lives up to his nickname. Now, part of that, one of his um, debates, as he was debating in his reelection, we'll get to that later, but he uh, he was going up against a man that was younger than him, and the question was posed in the debates: is age a factor? And Reagan was the first one to go, and he says, "Listen, I will not let age become a factor in this presidential race. I know my colleague is young and immature, but I will not let people question his age on this." So he really kind of spins it around because the question was, are you kind of what people were thinking is, Reagan, are you too old to be a president? Is your age too much of a factor? Are you going to be able to handle it? But he kind of spins it around and says, listen, my opponent, he's younger than me, so he's less experienced than me and less knowledgeable. So I'm not going to let people degrade him because of his age. So instead of people degrading Reagan for his age, he kind of turns it around and puts it on his opponent. So people kind of chuckle. They thought it was funny. And that's how Reagan was able to communicate so well. But he will be the oldest president or person to be elected president of the United States. Pretty big deal. Now, what I find hilarious is his first inauguration. He's going to become president 2 terms in a row. But his first term, as soon as he gets elected, the election was in November, but as soon as he gets inaugurated, whenever he gets put into office, look what happens. The Iranian hostages were released. So um, there were 52 Americans held hostage in Iran. And during the earlier presidency, during Carter's administration, Carter was going back and forth with the Iranians trying to make a deal, and they couldn't make a deal. Now, 444 days later, Reagan gets inaugurated. The day he enters office, Iran is like, okay, they're free. And that kind of shows you Reagan's character because he was warning the Iranians even before, during his campaign run. He says, listen, I'm not going to put up with these hostages. We're going to go and we're going to get our people back. They're not going to play with our people like this. So Reagan stands up for what he believes in, and he's not just all talk, but he will do what he says. And the Iranians know that. So the day he comes into office, they send the hostages back. Pretty interesting. Now, Reagan's time as president is a conservative time through America, but what's going to help him is our biggest ally, which is Great Britain. And they have a conservative leader as well. Yes, the king and queen are in charge of England, but really all the power rests on the prime minister. And during Reagan's time period, the prime minister of Great Britain was Margaret Thatcher. You can see her picture on 369, and she was just as conservative as Reagan was. So this was a tremendous time in the world, in world history, to have these two major world powers both be very conservative. So this was a great time in the world. And Reagan is going to surround himself with great people. He's going to appoint great conservative people. One is Sowell, or it looks like Powell, but without the P and S. Maybe I'm related to him somehow. But he was a great economics. You can see him on 370. He's going to give great advice to Reagan on how to get the economy going, and we're going to see how Reagan does that. So Sowell is going to be a tremendous piece of Reagan's help. And he's going to make sure that conservatism is spread throughout the country. And one way to do that is by appointing the Supreme Court justices. We saw back with Kavanaugh, with President Trump appointing Kavanaugh as the Supreme Court justice, and then the Senate has to approve him. So the president has that power to put someone on the bench, we call it, on the Supreme Court. Well, Sandra Day O'Connor was Reagan's choice. She is very conservative, and Reagan chooses her to be one of the justices, which this is a huge power that the president has because they can pick a conservative or liberal justice that could sway very important court cases. I mean, we're even still feeling the effects of Roe versus Wade, which was a Supreme Court case that went um, in the liberals' way. So we're still even feeling the effects of that Supreme Court case. So the power of appointing a Supreme Court justice is huge, and he appoints a conservative justice. Another thing that he's going to work on is the economics. We see this on 370 as well. It was nicknamed Reaganomics, and it was kind of like a bash on Reagan that he's kind of taking economics into his own hands. But look what he does: decreases the national debt, decreases unemployment, decreases inflation. He gets the job done, and he gets money back into the American people's hands. And whenever the American people say, "I have more money to spend," they're gonna spend it. That's why many people believe that whenever this whole quarantine thing is done, that the economy is going to boost back up because people have not been spending money. If they still have jobs, then they're still getting the normal income, and they're not spending money on events, on all these different things, gas probably going to work. So people are saving more money. So whenever we get out of this quarantine, people are just going to want to go spend. They have money and they haven't been able to leave their house in a month or more. So many people are projecting the economy to boom. That's exactly what happens with Reagan because he gets this job done. He gets the deficit cut, but notice on the bottom of 370, the unemployment dropped from 11% to 5%. That's over half. He cut it in half, over half. So he gets money back into the American people, and that's one reason why I like Reagan. It's because um, one of the most important things as president is to make sure the country is economically sound, and he gets that done. But another reason why I like Reagan is because of this idea he tries to push. It doesn't really become very successful because many people are too dependent on the government, but he's trying to get the power from the federal government to the states, which is what the founding fathers had in mind. So he's trying to go back to that route with new federalism, is what it's called, but it's not necessarily going to be very successful because, like I said, most people are going to look to the government to solve all their problems. But Reagan has that mindset, no, this power belongs to the states. Well, it doesn't all go perfect for Reagan because one of his biggest scares was Black Monday. Kind of like not like Black Friday, okay? Where the sales, no, we're not talking about that. Black Monday is when the stock market crashes. This is not the Great Depression. In fact, when this stock market crashes, it does not completely crash. It goes down significantly to where it hurts many investors. They lose a lot of money, but it doesn't crash. It doesn't tank. So it's more like a panic where it drops so much, people are starting to panic. Oh no, is it going to crash? It doesn't crash because the economy was well enough established that it was able to stop it from crashing, kind of held it, and then it got built back up. So the economy kind of takes a scare, but he's able to get the job done. I didn't put this on here, but at the bottom of 371, you can see education. Not only is he trying to promote good economics, but Reagan is trying to promote good education. And his Secretary of Education, every president has one, William Bennett, is trying to push morality back in schools. We've already had Bible and prayer taken out of schools, but he's trying to get morality taken or put back in schools. Last thing I want to mention on this slide is the space age. In 1981, we launched the first the first spacecraft into space, which was the Columbia. Don't get this confused with the second Columbia I have mentioned. This is different. The first one was Columbia, but the first one to actually explode. It was a very tragic event in 1986. The spaceship goes up. On its way up, there was a tile that was loose, comes off, and the spacecraft explodes, killing all the astronauts inside. The country is devastated. The space program kind of takes a pause for a couple of years, and then we get back to work. Well, time goes on. We still launch spacecrafts into space until in 2003, fairly recent, the Columbia explosion. I remember this, and I remember everyone in shock and panic and couldn't believe what had just happened. But you've seen where we are today. Now we're looking onto Mars, many other different places as well.